Jon Gruden and Jimbo Fisher have both decided they want to return to coaching. Jimbo Fisher said, who took a massive buyout from Texas A&M, walked away with $76 million, by the way, said, quote, "I'm 59, in great shape and healthy. I've had success everywhere we've ever been. The end at Texas A&M, it's unfortunate, but we also had the highest ranked team they ever had there in 2020. Our quarterbacks got hurt. We played with first team, third team. It was hard to get play calling and guys around. Didn't pan out like we needed to, but I still love it." Yeah, your highest ranked year was the COVID year. Okay. And using quarterbacks as an injury. You were at Texas A&M for 6 years. And that's your best selling point? Come on. That's absolutely ridiculous. Also, the way he left Florida State when they were a complete disaster after he left them too. That's ridiculous. More ridiculous. Jon Gruden. Gruden is now a media personality at Barstool Sports. And he said recently, I kid you not, quote, "The only reason I came here is I want to coach again. I'm being honest with you. I do not. I want to coach again. I die to coach in the SEC. I would love it. I would love it." That's a lot of nerve for Jon Gruden, given the fact that Tennessee courted him twice in 2012 and 2017, and he said he wasn't interested, and he wasn't coaching then. He was sitting in the broadcast booth. Then he went to the Raiders. Here's the truth with Jon Gruden, and here's what rubs me the wrong way about him doing this. Jon Gruden likes to be courted. Jon Gruden there is a very famous, I don't know how many cartoon watchers there were from y'all's ages, but when I was growing up, there was a cartoon I watched called Fairly Odd Parents. And Timmy Turner had a crush on this girl named Trixie Tang. And she always ignored him. She always acted like she was better than him. One day, Timmy had to sit next to Trixie on the bus because there were no other seats available. And Trixie goes, "I'm ignoring you." Timmy doesn't say anything. Trixie goes again, "I said I'm ignoring you." Timmy doesn't say anything. Finally, Trixie looks at Timmy and goes, "Stop ignoring me, ignoring you." That's Jon Gruden. Jon Gruden is the girl that wants to be courted and never wants to commit. And when you don't court him anymore, he goes, "Stop ignoring me, ignoring you." That's Jon Gruden, okay? It is so annoying. It is so grating. It is so frustrating. And Jon Gruden is one of the most annoying people in the world because people who do that sicken me. The people that want to be courted, they want you to approach them, and then when you don't, they melt down. Jon Gruden had no problem being courted by SEC schools all the time. By the way, it wasn't just SEC schools. It wasn't just Tennessee. For those who don't know, Texas made a run at Jon Gruden too. He turned them down. Jon Gruden, though, wouldn't just turn these schools down. He would flirt with them non-stop, okay? Remember, when the Tennessee rumors were flying in 2017, the groomers, as we called them at the time, Jon Gruden didn't reject them all. He took photo ops of himself in Knoxville and let the news get out there when Paul Feinbaum even reported that boosters wanted to cobble the money together. And then at the very end, he ends up telling them, he strings them along. They finally realize he's not interested and they have to move on. That actually was a big reason the coaching search went the way it did. It's so annoying for Jon Gruden to do that. He finally gets the job he wants in the NFL. He gets fired because of a scandal. I don't need to get into everything that went in with that. But the point of the fact of the matter is, now he wants to get back into coaching again with nobody interested in him. He's begging for a job. Now that he wants people to be interested in him and nobody's courting him, he does as, "I would die to coach in the SEC again." What a joke. What a joke. People like that sick of me. And Jimbo Fisher is just an excuse maker. Okay, Jimbo Fisher is just an excuse maker. They both annoy me. Gruden annoys me way more, though. Jimbo Fisher is just trying to get back into coaching, and I think he just wants something to do. Fisher was really selling himself, though, at the same time. On the other side, he goes, "Being able to coach, I would. I've won 72% of my games, won 80% of my playoff games. I've been fortunate to win a national championship as a head coach and assistant. I miss the relationships with players. I'd be very interested in still doing it. I still think I've got a lot to give. I'd like to get back out there." Jimbo Fisher's problem is just that he's too old school with his way of thinking and how he does things. All right, so we're going to play a little hot or cold, and it's brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. City Heat and Air, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. cityheatingandair.com. We've talked about coaches on the hot seat and where they could go next year. We're going to talk about coaches on the hot seat now and which one of these schools could hire Jon Gruden or Jimbo Fisher? So we're going to play a little hot or cold. Sorry, it wasn't brought to you by City Heating Air Conditioning. It was brought to you by Sports Treasures. Sports Treasures carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow more on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia daily updates. Facebook.com/Sports Treasures TN. Facebook.com/Sports Treasures TN. Hot or cold? Let's dive in now. Schools that could be looking for a coach next year, and I'm going to tell you if I'm hot or cold on them hiring Jon Gruden. Okay, we'll just stick with the SEC first. Arkansas could be looking for a coach next year. I'm hot on them potentially hiring Jimbo Fisher. I'm cold on them hiring Jon Gruden. Jon Gruden wouldn't take that job. As much as he wants to coach in the SEC, Jon Gruden wants an easier job than that. Okay, he doesn't want to work that hard to recruit, and you have to work hard to recruit at Arkansas. Auburn. I'm hot on both Jimbo Fisher and Jon Gruden. Really hot on Jimbo Fisher potentially getting that job. For those who don't remember, Jimbo Fisher actually cut his teeth coaching at Auburn from 93 to 98 as the quarterback's coach there. He was the quarterback's coach for Auburn when Auburn lost to Tennessee in the SEC title game when Peyton Manning was there. That's actually how he helped rise through the ranks in the coaching circles. So they could really hire Jimbo Fisher. Watch out for that. Florida, moving on from Billy Napier. Oh, I'm extremely hot on either Jimbo Fisher or Jon Gruden going to Florida. For Jimbo Fisher, that's the ultimate win since he left Florida State and he gets to go to Florida, his rival now. He would absolutely do it. It's an easy place to recruit. Now it's even easier with the SEC and ACC gap happening in Florida State and Miami stuck in the ACC along with UCF. So I'm sure Jimbo Fisher would do it. And yes, Jon Gruden would do it too. Jon Gruden coached in Tampa for so many years. Jon Gruden would love to coach in Florida. That's a job they would both take, and they both might get hired for that. I think Florida would go for Jon Gruden, though, more than anybody else. All right. LSU could be looking for a job. Yeah, I'm hot on LSU. I'm hot on LSU for both of them. Jon Gruden would love to be down there to be able to get the Louisiana kids. And also Jimbo Fisher, when I just talked about cutting his teeth, he also cut his teeth as LSU's offensive coordinator, was there for 7 years, won a national championship with Nick Saban. So Jimbo Fisher is very familiar with LSU. Don't sleep on them. LSU's a big one. So yes, I'm hot on LSU. Finally, Oklahoma. I'm cold on Jon Gruden in Oklahoma. It's not glamorous enough for him. If they move on from Brent Venables, it's just not glamorous enough for Jon Gruden, so I don't think he would do it. Jimbo Fisher would, though. Jimbo Fisher would take the Oklahoma job. He just wants to coach at a premier program. So yes, I'm hot on Oklahoma. Now, a couple other schools that could be looking for coaches that people are rumbling about. Mississippi State. Some people think they might fire Jeff Lebby. I don't think they would, but if they did, I'm cold on Mississippi State. Neither coach would go there. Same with Kentucky. If they fire Mark Stoops, neither coach would go there. Not happening. Hot or cold brought to you by Sports Treasures. Carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports daily updates. Facebook.com/Sports Treasures TN. Facebook.com/Sports Treasures TN. We're going to talk about schools beyond the SEC after a quick message from Sports Treasures.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Ball collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
All right, the poll question is up. Who would you rather hire, Jon Gruden, Jimbo Fisher? Both would drive me to drink. You guys can talk about that. Let's go to some national programs with schools on the hot seat and look at that. Now, let's go to, what about Florida State, guys? What if Florida State fires Mike Norvell? Jimbo Fisher's not taking that job back. I'm pretty cold on that. Not happening. But Jon Gruden might. I could see Jon Gruden at Florida State. Look, just being at Florida would be a big deal for him. So yes, Florida State, I'm hot on them. Potentially on Jimbo Fisher, on Jon Gruden, maybe landing there at some point. Let's keep rolling. We go over to the Big Ten. Are there any premier coaches on the hot seat? Sharon Moore. Would either of them go to Michigan? No. I don't think Jimbo Fisher likes to be in the North. Jon Gruden has to do a little bit extra work to recruit at Michigan. I don't think that's going to happen. So sorry. Not happening. That's probably the only, and then the other premier job outside of the SEC that they could potentially take. USC, Lincoln Riley. What if they fire him? Now, this is an interesting one, and I'm hot on both of them, Jon Gruden and Jimbo Fisher, potentially going to take the USC job. That would be very intriguing if they did. I don't know if they will, but if they did, it would be incredible. So watch out for USC and the possibilities that one of them looks for Jimbo Fisher or Jon Gruden going forward. Now, the poll question, who would you rather hire, Jon Gruden, Jimbo Fisher? Both would drive me to drink. 75% say both would drive me to drink. 25% say Jon Gruden. 0% say Jimbo Fisher. I saw Wisconsin was mentioned. No, neither is taking the Wisconsin job. Wisconsin requires a special, specific type of coaching that neither would be okay with, particularly Jon Gruden, who runs more variations of the West Coast offense. This is why Michigan wouldn't work either. The power coast is what you want to run when you're at Michigan. Now, Jim Harbaugh came from the West Coast offense and developed the power coast when he was at Michigan and did it very well. But he was already developed in the power coast because that's what he was running at Stanford, and he threw in the West Coast concepts when he was at San Francisco. So I do think that going forward is why Wisconsin's a bad fit for either of them. I would think Jimbo Fisher needs to recruit the talent. Jon Gruden runs an offense that just wouldn't fit in Michigan or Wisconsin and what they need to run. So the schools I'm hottest on are the Florida schools. I think Florida is the premier job. Look for one of them to potentially end up at Florida next year. Probably Jon Gruden. I'm saying it right now. There's a very good chance Jon Gruden's at Florida next year.